Hello and welcome to Kink University. I'm Danorama, and I'm here with
Cherry Torn.
And we're going to show you how to do threesomes, the female-female-male variety. One of the easiest ways to have a threesome is to actually have a relationship that you're already in. The biggest issues that come with female-female-male threesomes usually surround jealousy. So we're going to talk about things you can do to mitigate that ahead of time, both in your negotiations, also about involvement during the threesome and the positions that you take and the activities that you do, and also talk about things you can do after the threesome to make sure that things don't get a little hairy afterwards. Bringing up the idea of a threesome to your partner is one of the most difficult things that a lot of couples have. When you talk about a threesome with your partner, be very clear about what each other's limits are, and also what your expectations are, and whether this is a fantasy, and explore why you want to have a threesome, like what would make that hot, and of course involve them and make sure that you want to make sure that they're happy with it, and that will help a lot. Because the most important thing to have in the background of a couple that allows a threesome is a sense of what's called compersion. Compersion is not only the acceptance of watching your partner with another partner, but actually the desire and the enjoyment. The more your partner has that, and the more that you have that, to be able to see your partner with another person, the more successful your threesome is going to be. So once you've crossed that bridge and realize, hey, threesome sounds kind of hot, then you can say, hey, Cherry, wouldn't you like to have a threesome?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Good choice. It looks like Samantha Roan.
Hello.
We've seen all your movies. That's how we
Your
decide.
reputation precedes you.
When you are doing a threesome, it's important to make sure that your female partner does a lot, if not all, of the decision making and the talking and the hunting. But you know, it's not always the male in the couple that brings up the idea of a threesome. If the woman brings it up, I mean, there are certainly fun things to talk about there. So what are your experiences with threesomes?
A few of my threesomes have always started with me because I have more of an attraction to the feminine form, and just because it's, of course, more attractive than a guy just going like, hee hee. And you know, to get that masculinity and that femininity, it's nice. So I kind of like, I want that. Hey.
And how did you bring it up with your partner?
I would just bring up that my past, and I would say, hey, like, I'm not particularly okay with you and me going to see other people per se, but maybe we could bring somebody else into the bed and really enjoy it in a sense of together.
But it was nice that you avoided the topic of saying that, you know, the male form is not enough for me.
No.
So make sure that, because that's important when you're discussing it with your partner, to try to make them, to eliminate their suspicion, which is going to be that they're not enough for you. And whether you're the male partner or the female partner, if you're the one trying to arrange it, it's really important to make sure that you really care about them and that they're the best ones. And that this is just going to spice up everything for the both of you, and you're doing it for them.
It's good to have that
Definitely.
balance.
In addition to, not instead of.
In addition.
Yeah. And those characteristics of realizing that your partner is the primary person in all threesomes where there's a relationship and not complete strangers involved, the jealousy factor is something to really keep in mind. I didn't have my first threesome until I was 44, so there's hope for you.
I bet you can't even keep count now.
That's great. So those are two ways you may have a threesome, where you're in a couple and then you bring a third partner into it, whether it's the female's idea or the male's idea. Also, there's the fact that you could be three strangers that maybe meet at a party and it's a super sexy event, or you're at an orgy or something and then you just happen to get together. And that's always a fun thing to do. Before you have a threesome with your partner, you want to do negotiation. This is long before you do the hunt. So once you've come to the agreement that, wow, a threesome, that sounds kind of hot, then you have to figure out, okay, what are our boundaries and our limits? These are important to negotiate. One of the first things to negotiate is what do you want in the other partner? What are you looking for? consider such factors as attractiveness and race and bisexuality levels and that sort of thing. One of the neatest tips that I heard for successful threesomes with strangers is that it's best to approach a third partner who is of the same or lesser attractiveness as your partner to try to limit that jealousy factor in the core relationship that you have. The other thing, and this is the biggest success tip, is to have the female do the talking. Have the female do the hunting. Have the female have the veto power. And it's helpful to have like a secret code word that if you're meeting someone for the first time that you've met online and you're at Wicked Grounds and you're having a cup of tea together, to be able to have a secret signal where they know that they don't really like this person so that you can like just politely bow out. The other thing is also helpful to have a safe word going into it so that when you're actually doing the threesome, that they can get your attention so that you can check in with them if they're uncomfortable about something or if they need something, so that you can be a little bit more discreet than saying, honey, I really don't like you sticking your cock in her ass. That's an important thing to talk about, is like what sexual acts are going to be allowed.
So important. I feel like some people romanticize certain holes or certain things, or maybe you have some special thing you do as a couple, and then if it's important to know whether you should be repeating that with someone else, or I don't know if they just hold something special.
That anal sex is ours.
You know what I mean? Yes, exactit.
That's a very special
The sacred
thing.
hole. And that secret signal. The secret signal, I cannot recommend that enough because it removes all the awkwardness, if you know what I mean. And in my experience, if I've ever met someone, it's usually like after a night of drinking or whatever, and maybe your partner's feeling friendly, and you don't want to have an awkward conversation in front of them. You just want to be able to have a discreet little like.
Yeah. Also talk about where it is that you're going to take the person to have this threesome, whether it's your home, because a lot of people, if a total stranger, you may not want a total stranger in your house, or you may want to go to a hotel, or you may want to go to their place, or you're at a party, or something like that. So discuss where this is going to happen, because otherwise, if you have that discussion in the midst of it, like, cool, let's go have a threesome, like, where are we going to go? And then you waste 20 minutes trying to figure out, like, where you want to go.
Total boner killer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also important to talk about how you're going to finish up. For a lot of people, it's really tough to see your partner having a great earth-shattering orgasm with a complete stranger in front of you. When in doubt, finish with your partner rather than with the stranger.
Also, like when you're like doing something for your partner in the sense of like you guys are together and there brings in another person, like when that like when you're like talking in that person's ear and he's having sex with her and you're like just like either like mounting her face and like having sex that way, it's kind of like when he comes, it's like, no, that was mine. Like I was doing that. Like it was my dirty talk and her vagina, but my dirty talk. Yeah. It's like I wanted that.
It's true. It's very easy to feel possessive over the orgasm for whatever reason.
Also, it's helpful ahead of time to talk about what you're going to do afterwards. Is the third person going to sleep over? Are they going to share the same bed? Are they going to just sleep on the couch? Or are you going to just like give them a taxi and have them get the fuck out? For most people, particularly in the beginning, it's best to have the third person leave afterwards so that you two can reestablish your moment together and that you have a finite end to this sexy experience. Because a threesome should not turn into a relationship unless you have a lot more negotiation going on after the fact. Also keep in mind, you don't have to do everything all at once. Real life is not like porn. You don't have to do everything that you've seen in the movies, and you don't have to feel like you're being ripped off if you don't get to do every single position that you've seen on that Kink University video. It's okay to start simple. In fact, you don't even actually have to have sex with a third person the first time. The more conservatively you go and the more pleasant an experience it is at the beginning, the more opportunities you have to have future threesomes. If you blow it on your first try, then you're probably never going to get another
You cannot
chance.
walk that pony back, that's for sure. Deciding what happens afterward, that is so very important. And yet again, like multiple times in my personal experience, I have certainly messed that up. And I personally, even with experience, really like establishing that intimacy afterwards. I don't necessarily want a stranger in my bed for the rest of the night. It's like, because weird things can happen. What if your partner and the stranger fall asleep and they're sleeping nice and comfortably, and for whatever reason you can't fall asleep, but then you're awake?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I mean, it's tiny little details, I think, that you don't always plan for. It's like everything's always very nice in the moment, but you don't think about how you're going to tidy it up at the end.
Right.
I always feel different about that. For me, like, cuddling for me is kind of a sort of aftercare. It's like, thank you for being here and doing this with me and my significant other, and I appreciate it. Let me cuddle you and pet you and tell you you're pretty.
See, that illustrates the point that, like, people are so different, and you have to talk to your partner and see what they want, not what the stereotype wants.
Yeah. And also realize that people can be different at different times. So just because you've negotiated something in advance doesn't mean that they're down for that at the moment. They may have different expectations based on something that's going on in your personal life or in their work life, or how they're feeling physically at the moment, or whether they're just not feeling it, and everything changes, everything is up for negotiation, and that little secret signal that you have between each other is a great way to make sure that it doesn't make the other person feel awkward when you have to have a little time out. The other thing to talk about ahead of time with regards to the afterplay of a threesome is figure out whether you want this to be public knowledge or whether you want to keep this secret. The other thing that's important to keep in mind is that, are you going to stay in contact? And if you do stay in contact, the best policy is to have the female keep in contact with the other female.
That's a big one. Can I just say?
So whatever you do, don't on the third's birthday buy them something off of their Amazon wish list without telling your partner. That would be a terrible thing to do. Tell her I'm sorry. So what was your first threesome like?
Would you like to go first?
Shannon, what was your...
Okay, I think it was probably like a post-bondage go-go, like post-socializing. Everyone's kind of all dressed up and in a sexy mood already. We were always the kind of people that like to bring people back to our house. Come to my slutty lair.
Was this with your male partner?
Yes,
Okay.
with my male partner. And I think maybe that's probably how some of the boundary talks kind of negotiating gets a little bit skipped. And I think it's important what you were saying about doing it like way, way before.
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of get all caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think bad examples are, it's like what not to do. I think it's important.
It's super important.
Because I feel like everyone makes a mistake the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to. There's so many things that you have to keep track. I mean, this list you have going on, like, it's extensive. It's a lot of stuff to keep track of. It's super easy to push someone's boundary in a way they're not comfortable with. I really wouldn't be discouraged if your first experience is a little bit bumpy. I would almost guarantee it's gonna be a little awkward, a little bumpy.
Mm-hmm.
Probably so, but keep at it.
Don't let it deter you, because it's worth it.
And
in the
sometimes
long
if
run.
you've never done it before, you don't know. Like, we're telling you all these boundaries, but maybe you don't even know you had a boundary until it happens to you, and you're like, oh, that actually gave me a feeling that I didn't expect to have.
Yeah, and be honest with your third person too, to let them know that you're new at this.
This is so funny. Really good points. That's all I could say. Like, I did polyamory with no guidebook, and I made every last mistake you can make.
Another thing that you want to keep in mind ahead of time is like whether it's going to be with safe sex. Because when you're in the midst of the moment, that's the same sort of conundrum that comes with talking about STDs and also whether you're going to be using protection. Because you may be fluid bonded with your partner and you may not want to share that with the third person. So agree on that ahead of time so you don't have like a condom, and some awkward thing going on there, because that can kill the boner and your mood at the same time.
I always feel like that's one of my first discussions, because being in the adult industry, like, I don't want to contaminate another performer in that sense, because I'm like, it's my job, you know? And I'm always like, okay, condom, before we do this, like, hey, this is what's happening. You're gonna put on a condom to fuck her, and then you're gonna not put on a condom to fuck me.
Yeah.
Blowjobs, same thing.
If you're using condoms with two females, the female condom, this is probably the best thing that this thing was ever invented for. Because then the two females can wear it and the guy doesn't have to stop to refresh every time. Because if you're doing safe sex, you want to make sure that you don't put a condom you've used with one woman into another woman. But if they're already plugged up and ready to go, then it's a lot more easy to have fun. So if you haven't tried a female condom, that would be a great excuse to try it. The last thing that's important to keep in mind with these negotiations is make sure that you keep the line of communication open with your partner to let them know that they can talk about any sort of jealousy or any issues that come up to them even after the threesome has happened. So always be willing to talk about stuff and speak frankly each time you do. When you're hunting, there are certain people that are more likely to be threesome material than others. Women that are 18 to 24 are 4 times more likely than other women to be into threesomes. So go for the college women, not necessarily for the cougars. If the cougars want a threesome, they'll usually come after you.
Oh my god. Interesting. Is that really a statistic?
It is.
Really?
I bet it's true. I mean, 18 to 24 is that experimental age. You want to try everything once.
That's ridiculous. I don't know. I think that's why it goes into the who I find attractive and who my significant other finds attractive, because it's like, I'm like, yeah, I have mommy issues. And like, he's like,
He wants the sweet young thing. Of course.
we get a both.
Young ones,
Yeah.
I steer clear.
I know, it doesn't do it for
They're
me.
batshit.
Doesn't do it for my boyfriend either, and I love it. We find it, see,
Go, talk. No.
We're willing to
This is time to get real.
I think the biggest difference now between previous partners and the current partner I have now is that we are so compatible with what we like. We both love big tits, big ass, slightly older, juicier the better. You know.
I kind of also feel like when you're getting somebody that's 18 to 24, they really don't know. And it is an experimental time, and they're not really going for that. They're like, I don't know, I just want to have sex. And it's like, no, this isn't going to turn into you stay over every night as well,
Yeah.
you know?
And the older that your partners are, or actually the more experienced they are, the easier it is to kind of keep things real and keep things balanced. When you find a partner, it's also important to realize that you don't want to have any romantic feelings with this third person. A bad person to choose is someone that you've sort of been flirting with, that you think may be wanting your boyfriend, or you think that you've sort of been flirting with on the side or whatever. You want to make sure that there are no romantic feelings between you, because that's just going to really be toxic for the core relationship you already have. If you happen to have a shy or submissive partner, then it becomes a little bit more difficult to have them do the trolling for you. It also is important for you to negotiate with them and make sure that they're confident. If you're a dominant and sending your submissive out to hunt for girls for you is like a really lame thing to do, but a lot of people do it. And if you're going to do that, it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of discussion with your partner, and oftentimes it's best to kind of guide them through it right beside their side, because otherwise they're going to be so shy and awkward that it's just going to be really embarrassing for them, and then they will hate you.
It's true. I'm like, yes, absolutely. That was my experience, 100%. I'm like, don't send me to hunt. It makes me feel awkward. I was really, obviously now, I'm very different, but 10 years ago, I was really shy and really submissive. And so sending me out to hunt for someone is basically my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, I found it very hard to kind of be direct with someone, and I wasn't good at negotiating with strangers. Like, I needed my dominant partner to kind of be the person doing the negotiating with the other party.
And how did you approach that with your dominant partner then?
We, not well. But what I've learned...
Got a new dominant partner.
Yeah, basically. But no, I kind of learned what not to do. And like, you have to, if your dominant partner is going to do a lot of the negotiating for you, they need to know your limits inside and out. They need to know what you like inside and out. They should be able to speak for you truly, like, on what's on your inside, because I think it's dangerous with a submissive partner that they might just go along with it or do something they're not totally into necessarily unless you really know them well.
Yeah, and usually that conversation starts with something like you're at a party, usually BDSM oriented, because those are the swinger or burner or bondage go-go type party. Those clubs are a little more fruitful for those kind of conversations because people kind of expect that. And I've heard conversations go that way, and the dominant will try to put the person out there, go, you know, my partner is really curious about what it's like to be with a woman. Would you like to join us? And do something like that. And so first of all, you have to make sure that it's genuine, that they really do want to be with a woman, and that they are really curious about that. And then that gives you a reason to bring it up. And when you're doing it, make sure you touch and are as affectionate with your partner as you're doing this. If you're the male doing the talking, you want to make sure that, you know, marking your territory, because otherwise the biggest concern that your partner's going to have is that you're basically, you know, she doesn't want to see you run out and just like, look, honey, I got one of these. That's usually a recipe for disaster and hurt feelings. The other thing you can do if you're a dominant male that wants to use your shy submissive to get a threesome for you is, rather than send them out to hunt, use them as bait. If I were to go out with you, you're just like a chick magnet, and so it's great. That's one of the neat advantages of hunting for a threesome as a couple, is that, first of all, it takes the creep factor out of the male, because they think, oh, well, you must be pretty cool because you've got this hot babe with you already.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people, and so it's sort of like a reference there. And a lot of times, the women that are overtly hunting for a bisexual partner, they'll walk all over the guy to get to the girl. And so it's very easy to just sit back and watch this relationship happen.
I'm a horrible person when it comes to that. I'm like, vagina! Yay!
Oh, the tunnel vision.
I do. I'm like, no, vagina.
But some guys like that. They have like more of a voyeuristic kind of fetish, and they want to see you go to town.
Exactly.
But I think that's another one of those things that you have to negotiate when you include the BDSM in the conversation, is what role are you in the threesome? Like, are you submissive normally? Do you want to be submissive in the threesome? Do you not want to be submissive to other women with your partner? I feel like sometimes it can give people more control and empower them if, you know, the new person is kind of the toy.
Yeah.
When I was in my poly, I kind of felt that, like, I was not submissive to the male in that sense, because I'm like, I don't know you in the beginning. And then the female I was more submissive to because, well, you know, I'm like, I know what's going on.
Yeah, one of the strategies that can help in terms of positions with a threesome is BDSM. So bondage is great, particularly if you have a submissive partner that is nervous about getting involved and doesn't really want to do anything. Sometimes it's great, and we'll demonstrate this, have a threesome where two people, whether it's your partner and yourself, lavishing all of your attention on one person who doesn't have to do shit, just lie back there and enjoy it. And the other way is to tie up your partner, and then you and a new dominatrix you meet or another dominant female can then go to town on this person. When you're thinking about a third person for your threesome, one of the biggest considerations is to whether to go for a stranger or for a friend. And there are advantages and disadvantages to each. For example, if you go with a stranger, strangers can be less drama. There can be less awkwardness with them than if you're doing something with a friend, because a friend you see the next day. So strangers are great because they're there just for that moment. The other thing is that can be more exciting because it's completely unfamiliar territory, and you have all of that excitement of discovering new territory and discovering new techniques. However, it can be less sane and can be less safe, both in terms of STDs, but also in terms of you don't know if this person's a psycho or whether they're going to get all stalker on you. Well, friends are easier to find and easier to talk to, and you may already know who are more likely to be game for it than others. Also, your friends are probably more likely to be caring and affectionate to you. Strangers can be pretty cold and just all about the sex. And if you're the type of person that really likes a lot of intimacy and an affection with your sex, strangers may not always be able to deliver that. The trouble with friends is that they can be much more jealousy inducing because you know that your partner is very likely to have additional contact. You never know if you're going to be meeting them in a non-sexual situation afterwards, like going on a hike. There's also the fact that friends are often much more gossipy and they talk to other friends of yours. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. If you are in an environment that has a lot of people that are into threesomes and you're in San Francisco and everybody's all polyfuckery, the more you talk about it, the more people realize that, hey, it's good advertising. It can act like a snowball. If you have a good threesome, not only can you have future threesomes with that partner, but then they will realize that threesomes are fun for their life and they will go find other people and they will tell, oh man, I just had the greatest experience. You should talk to these people. And if you're looking for a threesome, because a lot of people ask their friends, you know, what should I do? Who should I consider? And if you get a reputation as being a low stress, well-skilled couple, then that's like double unicorn time. The other problem with dealing with friends is that it can backfire. And the nice thing about dealing with strangers is that if it doesn't go well, you can just peace out and not have to deal with them anymore. But if you're dealing with a friend, then they're going to be like wanting to do it again, even if you didn't like it, or they're going to want to be pushing your boundaries, or they're mad because you sent them home in a cab.
So true. Or it just adds a little tinge. It's like every time you hang out with them, like, are you expected to have sex with them then? Is this
Yeah.
a date or like a social visit?
But the biggest thing to keep in mind is that best friends don't mix with boyfriends.
Ta-da! Unicorn.
When it comes to finding a unicorn to do it with, probably a good idea is to find a friend who lives a long way away. That's a great balance between stranger and friend. Someone who's not going to be in your life. Ideally, a friend that not only lives far away, but a friend who has all her fingers broken so she can't text or Facebook your partner. Because then you can go and you can be in vacation mode. You've got a hotel, and she can meet you at the hotel. And then you've got a nice finite close to it where everybody leaves. You can still spend time together after the fact. So I highly recommend traveling for threesomes. And the internet is a great way to arrange that if you've got friends online. And I know that most of you do, except you. Guys, you have the hardest job when it comes to being a single guy looking for two women to have a threesome with. Just to be honest, that's like the Pegasus of relationships to have. And unless you're super nice and super good looking and it helps to be super rich or something like that, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to rely on your cunning and your being a good person and having lots of good connections and references in order to make this work. It's kind of hard to just cruise women and go, hey, would you like to have a threesome with me? But when you do approach two people that you know are probably pretty intimate with each other and are into talking to you, make sure that you befriend their wing woman. As much as you are into the person that you really want to have sex with, because their wing woman is going to give them the approval to go forward. And so you really need to be flirting with two people equally at once. The other thing that you can do is that you can stage it around a particular event, like your birthday. Say that, you know, it's going to be my 30th birthday, and you can kind of playfully whine to polyamorous girlfriends of yours that might know someone who might know someone who might know someone. Whatever you do, don't be a creepy creeper. There are no real instructions for that. All I can say is that you won't know when it happens, but they'll let you know. So great, you've made all these agreements with your partner, you know what you're going to do, it's going to be great. You and your partner, where are you going to go hunt? Where can you do it? Well, the biggest ways to do it is to go to a swing club. And even if you're a single person, this is a great way to approach it too. Is you go to a swing party, and you can use your search engine to look up swing party, and you can find different events in your area. The best resource, quite frankly, is fetlife.com, and you can join all sorts of groups in your area that talk about threesomes and moresomes and orgies and that sort of thing.
Orgies.
What's Orgies. Orgies are great. You had a great observation about orgies, about how that's a great way to try a threesome for the first time, even if you're just the odd girl or odd boy out.
So true. Let less pressure.
Because if you're in an orgy situation, it's nice because you can just very easily go from one partner to the other, and usually they're a casual enough environment that there aren't all these relationships that you're violating, and so it's a lot easier to just try things out, to even see if you like touching another girl or having your girl being touched by another girl. Those are things that are best found out in a non-pressure situation. You can also try looking for threesomes online, not only on FetLife, but also by posting profiles on such sites as OkCupid. You can also go to, there's a website called threesomematch.com.
Were there some pretty girls on there though?
Yeah, there were. It's mostly couples, and you post a profile and you post a photo of yourself, and then the biggest action is happening in the forums where they have, hey, we're a hot couple in Schenectady looking for a girl to join us. That's usually helpful for people that are willing to pay for other people to travel out to see them. It's a lot harder to find people in your local area, and that adds some complexity to it. But it can be great for distant traveling. Say you and your partner are going to be on a vacation in Hawaii, and you put the word out there a few months in advance. There's also an app called Thrinder. It's like Tinder, only with a 3. It's an app on your phone, and it's just like Tinder or Grindr or Whippler.
I'm gonna go download it right now.
Yeah, and then you're gonna be like super popular. Samantha Rhodes on Thrinder. Quick, also go buy stock now because Samantha Rhodes on Thrinder.
I have Tinder, and I like Tinder. I like sitting on Tinder and seeing the people around me that want sex. I'm like, these people want sex.
Tempting as it may be, you may want to steer clear of Craigslist. And you can try it, and that may be good for women, I guess, if you don't really care about
Safety,
yeah. But I mean, to each his own. Craigslist has its spot, and depends on where you are.
Did you check out Backpage? Because like they have
No, I
like the
haven't.
section for like strippers, and I've gotten some really, really pretty strippers on there.
It's so easy for me to get girls. I'm Samantha Road, bitch. The other thing is talk to couples that you know, or even individual friends that you know have had threesomes before, and kind of find out what their recommendations are, what they have done. And who knows, maybe they'll want to take you to a party or introduce you to a friend, or maybe even do you themselves. Finally, there's always the option of considering a sex worker or a legal brothel. And the advantage of doing that is that you're dealing with people that are, if they're a professional, they're concerned about their STD status and they're aware of it and they take precautions to be safe. The other thing is that they're good at what they do. Also, you don't have to worry about the fact that they're going to get too attached to you. And then finally, when you're working with a sex worker, you can guarantee you're going to learn some awesome moves and other tips.
But not everybody's good at it.
So your mileage may vary, and whatever you do, keep it legal and keep it safe. So it's the big night. You have your threesome unicorn here, and you're ready to go at it. This is your first time doing it, but before you start diving into it, you don't want to just dive into it. Have some negotiation with a third person there. Talk about what's okay. Hey, we really want to enjoy involving you in this and that. Everything's okay, but we'd like to finish up with each other.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. Do you have any things, and how about you? How do you feel about, like, what can we do to you? What will keep you comfortable?
I definitely don't like biting.
Don't like biting.
No.
Okay, no biting. You've been tested. I've seen your results.
Yes.
So we're cool. Great. So we're good with that. It's good to have an STD conversation before you start getting hot and heavy, because otherwise people tend to forget things or
Even
they
kissing.
leave stuff out,
like,
and even
you
kissing.
can get stuff from that.
Yeah. So talk about that and discuss what sort of safe sex precautions you're going to be doing, and have everything ready. We've got to have your toys ready. Make sure your surroundings are nice and comfortable. And whatever you do when you start to do this, don't get too drunk so that you forget about what you talked about. And Also, you want to make sure that you can be able to perform as hard as you can throughout. Nobody really just goes into it and starts diving into threesome sex unless you're like at a swingers club and that's expected. When you get home, get a little comfortable. You may even want to take a shower together if you've been at a club dancing and you're all sweaty. Get a little bit intimate, sit on the sofa, listen to some music, watch a Kink University video, whatever it takes to get you in the mood a little bit. Oftentimes, the best way to broach it, if you're a couple, is for the couple to start engaging something and then invite the third person in. Don't immediately make a beeline for the third person, otherwise you're going to create some jealousy feelings. So.
I feel spoiled.
I want to share.